Hello, welcome. It's Frances here. Thank you for coming back to my channel. If this is your first time here, I bid thee welcome. There is a subscribe button below if you would like to help support this channel by subscribing, and also a bell to be notified as to when I upload more content. I'm coming to you from Ghana country, and as such, I acknowledge the Ghana people of the Adelaide Plains as being the traditional custodians of this land. So this video is going to be about our upcoming full moon, which is going to be taking place here in Adelaide, South Australia on Thursday, the 17th of October at 9:56 p.m. It may be earlier, depending on where you are in the world. So go on to places like timeanddate.com just to find out where the moon will be at its peak. That's if you line yourself with working with the timing of the moon. It will be a super moon, meaning that it'll be closer to the Earth in its ecliptic, and it is actually, I think, one of the third supermoons in a row that we have had. It will also be in the astrological sign of Aries at 24 degrees 35 minutes. So that also means that the sun is in Libra, directly opposite. So you might want to, if you have a copy of your natal chart, look to see where 24 degrees 35 minutes is in your chart, whether there's any planets or points there, and also what house. Because there are a lot of other things paying off at the same time that it's taken me a while to actually put this together, because there is so much. And as I keep mentioning in all my other videos, I'm not an astrologer. I just have an interest in astrology. So I've been looking at the astrologers who I follow and trying to put together what they've suggested and what they are really highlighting. And it's really interesting because they're all highlighting the same thing. So I do link the two main ones below. So that's Pam Gregory Astrology and also Molly McCord. And so I'm just going to do a short summary because there is so much happening. And when we sort of look at what's happening in our world around us, it's sort of maybe giving a little bit of insight as to why things are as they are at the moment. I know Pam Gregory goes into looking at the upcoming US election. There's also other connections that she draws in as well. So if you're interested in that stuff, you might want to see to go and visit her channel. Molly looks more sort of at a spiritual consciousness as well, and she has a slightly different slant. However, as I said, the transits they've both picked up on. So I'm just going to very briefly talk a little bit about them and leave it over to the experts. So it's almost like what we have experienced at the eclipse cycle, especially the solar eclipse with the new moon. This is in sort of like those energetics that are following through from that. And because it's in Aries, Aries is a bit of a fire sign, so it's also fast moving. It wants to move. And if not handled correctly, it could be very aggressive in what it does. One of the strongest configurations that's happening, it's one of the strongest configurations in astrology, is that at this full moon, we are going to have a cardinal grand cross, which means that there will be a cross or a square forming through the four cardinal signs, and that they are Cancer. Mars is in Cancer, Libra, the sun is in Libra. We have the moon in Aries, and we have Pluto in Capricorn. And all of these signs are actually initiatory signs. They usually mark the start of the seasons. So it's about initiations, it's about beginnings. But we also have a lot of planets actually in the anaretic at the end point of their signs, which also indicate sort of like the shadowy aspects of those signs sort of being exposed. The full moon, the sun shining brightly on it is exposing everything that may have been in the shadows. And we've got a lot of stuff coming up to the surface, almost like a last hurrah before the planets move into other signs. Then we have a lot of opposing things. And yeah, so firstly, we'll look at Mars. Mars at 22 degrees, 55 minutes, say 23 degrees of Cancer. It is opposing Pluto, which is at 29 degrees of Capricorn. And this opposition will be exact around the time of the US election. This point will also be re-triggered on the 3rd of January next year and also the 26th of January next year. And according to Pam Gregory, this opposition represents brute force. She's wondering whether it may affect the US election, maybe the results in particular. There'll be some sort of interesting, shall we say, outcomes that may happen. She also did mention that going by the US chart, which is based when the Declaration of Independence was ratified back on the 4th of July, 1776, this opposition between Mars and Pluto may affect something more foundational in the US because Mars is in the 4th house, which is considered to be the home base. So she strongly recommends anybody affected to read. There is other aspects as well, and in particular, the full moon in Aries. Not only is it going to be fiery and quick, but it's also conjunct right next to a dwarf planet called Eris. Now, Eris is the warrior sister of Aries. She's known as the Greek goddess of discord, of strife. She wasn't invited to the wedding between Peleus and Thetis that went on at Olympia, so she attended anyway with a golden apple that she threw amongst the goddesses who had gathered there and said that this apple was for the fairest. And as the goddesses squabbled, it is said that this action led to the start of the Trojan War. So being a dwarf planet means that Eris is actually located outside of the orbit of Pluto and is actually 3 times further away from the sun than what Pluto is. So Martin McCord has points out that wherever Eris is located, she represents the darkness of the collective consciousness, sort of hanging on to rage. She's connected with intense feelings, especially where she has been maybe abused or traumatized, or where horrible events in the past that she's gone through have occurred. And this can even accumulate over lifetimes. So we're looking at almost unprocessed trauma, unprocessed-generational trauma that's been passed down through the DNA or collective consciousness. And that seems to be what we are seeing in certain parts of the world at the moment being played out. However, Eris is also connected with the suppressed, those who have not had the opportunity to be heard. And because she's about bringing in truth and justice in society for all. So it will be interesting to see what will plan out, because the moon is also conjunct Chiron, which is in Aries at 21 degrees. and Chiron being the wounded healer, this is sort of activating a deeper part of ourselves that probably is requiring more conscious growth around how we handle our anger, our aggression. Do we release this onto the world in retaliation, or do we use this as, I was going to say experience, but gain from that experience to apply it a bit more justly? Aries is usually about the self, so it's about our personal orbit, our personal triggers, but it's also requiring us to stand up and step into our own power in a more personal way, being more responsible for us, what triggers us, as opposed to lashing out and blaming everyone else in general. And it'll be interesting because Chiron is not quite direct in Aries with Eris. Actually, it hasn't quite reached 24 degrees. So there is this little bit of a sort of a build up, but being only at 21 degrees. So this may make you start feeling like things are coming up very quickly, getting your attention very quickly, and it could almost feel like you're being pushed to your limits. Because things that you no longer can ignore are coming up. So practice self-care, get out in nature, barefoot on the earth, ground yourself, look after yourself. So I was going to say cut yourself off from other obligations, but limit. If things trigger you, if people or situations trigger you, if social media triggers you, take responsibility and limit your engagement in these areas. Also, monitor more your own levels where you are at. And if you do have self-care mechanisms, make sure that you look after yourself. Because all of these things, these triggering things are like catalysts. It's like sort of like getting things out in the open so then we can move on. But don't forget, the sun is in Libra. This Libra is all about balance. Sometimes if we're getting too much in the I am my space, which is Aries, we need to breathe, step back, and take a look at the bigger picture. Libra is also very rational, very logical. And if we take that breath before we react and look at the bigger picture, then we very well could get insight into what we need to focus on, or where we're not putting our energy or using it in a more appropriate manner, especially this Chiron Aries Eris connection of energies that is coming up. And of course, we've got Mars squared these three, Eris, the moon, and Chiron. And this could be a bit of an emotional release because Mars is in Cancer. Cancer is an emotional watery sign. So Mars could be actually triggering us, forcing us to face something that's been bubbling around under the surface that we've been ignoring. So look at which planet is strongest in this square, because Mars is pushing that energy, making Aries not able to deny it. And Mars is also where you may be holding some resentment about something that you are currently working through, or it's been re-triggered about due to what's the situations which are happening around us in the collective consciousness. But Mars is also squaring the Sun in Libra as well. So it's almost like it's taking on this something that's happening and we're taking it a little bit too personally. And we're not going to be listening to the reason, but this is asking us again to step back, making sure it's a reminder for us to get out of our headspace, get out of it's all about me, and sort of check in to how we are reacting and why. Okay, we've also got Pluto. Pluto's now direct. It's still at the anaretic of 29 degrees, 38 minutes of Capricorn. This is the final time that, at least in our generation, that Pluto will be in Capricorn. So it's sort of adding an influence of it being sort of like a hard degree, a square, to both Aries as well as Mars and the Sun in Libra as well. And it'll be an exact square about 5 days after the full moon. So tensions are increasing. Pluto is about power, about structure. It's about executive decisions. It's still reminding us that we need to take care of where we're going to be finishing up. So it's sort of like clearing out any Capricornian energy in our chart and giving that bit of a final push or shove. And it'll be adding this intensity with Mars next month on the 3rd of November, around the time of the US elections. So it's, again, there's a lot of intensity, there's a lot of pressure happening. This can erupt to disagreements, to war, to fights. But all of this is sort of activating something for, as with our cardinal sign. So this is something new. It's sort of like it's not a gentle shove direction into something new. It's giving us a big push into the new chapter or the new beginning direction that we're heading into. And it's also sort of giving us a heads up that things are going to be a little bit messy, unstable for the first time as we sort of let go of the old, moving into the new, and that's okay. We're going to be sort of emerging out of that. But we need to sort of get rid of the complacency and what we're familiar with, because especially if we've been hanging on to stuff that's definitely not working for us. We also need to, again, check into how we are feeling, our emotions, and where we have sort of handed over our power or responsibility, or we've given it to other people, and what energies we're allowing in on a personal level, especially what's happening in the collective. Added to that, Jupiter is 21 degrees retrograde of Gemini. It's actually sextiling the moon. It's also trining the Sun in Libra. So Jupiter is the spiritual expansion. It's about growth. It's about beneficial development, especially personal growth. But with being retrograde, this information could be a little bit more delayed than normal. So it's asking us to be a little bit more patient. Again, Pam Gregory seems to think that, or believes that there could be a switch in our belief systems, because retrograde, when planets are retrograde, we usually review, renew, revisit situations. So Gemini being about communication, this also can connect into what we believe due to extra facts, information, which is Gemini, coming to light with the Sun being exposing in its full, again, things that we may not have noticed before. She's also gives a little bit of a warning just to be a little bit more careful as to what you share on social media at the moment. So those are some of the big transits. There are others. Venus is at its anaretic degree in Scorpio. Uranus is in Taurus also at its astrological degree. Both of these, Venus governs Taurus, and both are connected with money, values. Scorpio is sort of, to say, connected with sort of the hidden secret stuff. So there may be other hidden agendas coming to light at this super moon. Mercury is at the anaretic at 29 degrees 35 minutes of Scorpio. And again, this is sort of like getting into worst case scenarios, that sort of earworm thought pattern that we may get into. Again, breathe. It can also bring in unexpected support. And we also need to remember that everybody is feeling these energies, some consciously, some unconsciously, and not to take things too personally. There are other things that I could talk about, but as I said earlier, I really think I should leave this to the experts. And I've got both Molly's and Pam's videos linked below. It's quite interesting because this sort of heated aggression, making fast decisions, quick decisions, maybe not even thinking them out thoroughly, is what's definitely happening in my personal life at the moment. There was a very quick decision made today. I was still contemplating options, but looks like the options have been made. So whether it's the right one or not, looking at the cardinal grand trine or the cardinal grand cross or square, it's all about new beginnings. So looking a little bit more positive, focusing on the positive, even seeing if you're being triggered that these are situations or events which are encouraging you to go within and look at why. Why are you being triggered? Do you have unprocessed trauma, aggression, anger that needs to be addressed, to work through? Or as we have been working with Chiron's energy, and it's been quite a big part in the last couple of years, what lessons are emerging from our journey with Chiron in how we can better prepare ourselves, handle ourselves as we move through these rather intense happenings on the planet. And the astrologers have all seemed to agree that it's not just going to go away overnight. These energies will be around us for a little while yet. So again, the emphasis is on self-care, learning to breathe, taking a couple of deep breaths, do the fourfold breath, anything like that, to find that place of peace and equilibrium, tranquility within yourself. And there's another thing that Pam Gregory keeps saying in her videos, which I really like. And it says, yes, there's a lot of stuff happening out there in the collective. Not all of it's nice. You don't want to sort of like completely switch off. And that way you become ignorant. But we can take responsibility as to what of those energetics we allow in. We can be aware without being too involved. So we're not dismissing it. We're sort of bringing things back into on an energetic level. And instead of being energetic, what we absorb and what we react, we're all adding to the collective and our own energy. Take it in, center, find that place of peace, love, tranquility, harmony, healing, and then see if we can project that out. Take in the aggression that we're seeing, the frustration, the overwhelm, the sadness, the horrors, the trauma, and can we somehow breathe it through, and then come from a place of peace and harmony and love. Pam is big on love. You talk about universal love, and project that back out into the world. I know she does. I think the Sunday night meditations or something like that. If you want a practice, again, check out her video. She goes more into that. I know there's other people around the world doing prayer gatherings as well. And that could also help you to get through. So these energies are going to be around us for a little while longer. And I think it's basically our duty of care to try and project back peace, love, harmony. And if we all do that, we all add to the ripples that go out to the collective. We shouldn't fight violence for violence. That doesn't do anything. Anyway, enough about that little lecture. Breathe. If you're in Adelaide on Thursday evening, a little bit later due to daylight savings. I think I've got it at 7:15. Let's double check. Full moon gathering down at Largs Bay. Do go to mysticalsoulacademy.com or templedarkmoon.com, and you'll find all the details there, because I sit down and was playing with my head and just to ascertain whether it is 7:15 or 7:45. I'm quite sure it's 7:45. I haven't quite gone the whole full hour yet because the sun is still setting a little bit earlier. So yes, or reach out to me. If there's anything that resonates with you in this video, please leave your comments below. I do go back and read them. I do even answer some of them as well. Take care, look after yourself. Try and focus on self-care. Have some peace, love, harmony for yourself. Heal thyself. And take care. Blessings.